So funny question that I got recently. So the gist of the question is this guy got into jiu-jitsu recently, and he's got into it, and he's seen people with this old mangled ear, right? They've got this cauliflower ear, and he says that he looks at it and goes, ugh, it looks gross, it's nasty looking. But he sees that a lot of people call it a badge of honor, and they like it, and they kind of wear it with pride, like I do. And so he's wondering, he kind of sends a question to me like this, like, Chewy, do you actually like the ear? Or are you convincing yourself that you just want to have it because you just can't get away from the thing blowing up and having a little bit for some reason? So basically, his question was, do people actually like the cauliflower? So, brother, thank you for the question. And, you know, I've thought about this question a bunch because when I was younger, I wanted it. Like it took me like 8 years to get my cauliflower once I got into jiu-jitsu. But I wanted it because I looked around and saw other people had it. They wore it like a badge of honor, and I kind of wanted it. But at the same time, I remember asking myself, why is it that I want a mangled, disfigured ear, right? Because that's what it is it's a disfigurement. Why do I want that? And so I did some thinking on it, and so I'll share the reasons why I like my cauliflower ear, and then again, you can take this for what you will. This is not to sway your opinion one way or the other. This is just to let you know why I actually like it. So the big thing, first off, is I think that a lot of us in jiu-jitsu, I'm not the only one, we kind of like, those of us that are like this, we kind of like when we have little injuries that don't necessarily impede our ability to train. So for instance, you'll see someone get like a black eye, a busted lip or a busted nose or something like that, and they'll take a picture on, social media and be like, yeah, look how tough I am. They'll take the picture on it. I see those all the time. Social media wasn't around when I was a white belt and blue belt and purple belt, but if it had been, I would have been one of those guys taking pictures because I remember anytime I'd get like we'd headbutt each other and I'd get a black eye or something, I would always kind of get happy about it and wear it with pride. So there's something about that, where we get injured, but they're not real injuries. They're like little minor injuries and they don't impede our ability to train. We kind of like it. Again, speaking from people that are like me. The other thing about it that I think about is the distinction that comes with it. There's a certain amount of distinction that comes with having this ear. Now, 10 years ago, nobody really knew what this meant. Now, if I walk around, people know what it is. Like just the other day, I went to a restaurant and there's a guy asking me about wrestling and grappling because he saw my ear. And his son trains jiu-jitsu. I remember the first time someone asked me about my ear, I was walking into I was trying on clothes. And then I'm trying on clothes, and the woman that took me to my changing room was like, "Oh, are you a fighter?" And I remember asking her, I was like, "How do you know that? How do you know I'm a fighter?" She goes, "Your ear, duh." Looking at me like I was dumb for even asking that question. Of course, what else would it be? And so again, there's a marked distinction that we have as fighters and we have as grapplers and combat sports athletes that other people in day-to-day life just simply don't have. Most people don't have this. And so it's this mark of distinction. And that idea of distinction, that gets at human nature on a deep level. When you think about so many things that humans do, a lot of times it's to be separate from someone else, right? To have something that they don't. You can think about so many things that people put their time, effort, and energy into to acquire. A lot of it is because they have it and someone doesn't. I mean, you can think about cars, clothing. You can even think about the idea of, the crappy JPEG art that they put on the internet that sells for like thousands of dollars and it's called NFTs, right? I'm making a stab at some of you guys. Someone's going to get angry. But, again, it's I have it, you don't. And that inherently, that scarcity gives something value to people, both on an emotional level, but also in some cases a monetary level. And so again, I have something that you don't. It's kind of another thing that I think gets at it. And then the last sort of idea that I've kind of come to in my own sort of brain is that when I was a kid, I didn't have a great relationship with my father. And there were several other men that kind of filled that void. I was lucky for that. And one of them was my grandfather, who was he was a combat veteran. He served several years overseas in combat, and his body showed it. He had scars and markings across his body, and one in particular was a deep scar that went from his up here in his shoulder, just below his clavicle, all the way down to his hip. And it was a big scar. And I remember asking him what happened, and he was leading a platoon, and he was in an armor division, meaning he was driving tanks, and his tank got blown up or hit by something, and all this shrapnel went into his chest, and they had to get in there and do surgery to pull it out. And so he had this big scar from that surgery. And I don't know what it was, but I always thought that was kind of cool. And then when you watch movies and things like that, right? Watch movies and shows, and you see the really badass grizzled veterans, the really good fighters that have been around for a long time that everybody respects. In those shows, those guys typically look pretty mangled. They have some disfigurements to them, right? They don't look unblemished. They're not like today's society where, you know, everybody's trying to get plastic surgery and make everything look perfect, right? They look like they've been through it. And so I think for some level, some subconscious attachment for me is that it's this attachment to this sort of warrior idea. You know, that we're going to look a little disfigured from the stuff that we do when we're doing tough stuff and we're fighting all day long, right? And I'm okay with that. I'm cool with it. And I've got like, from my face, I've got all kinds of scars up here across my forehead. I've got some mangled fingers that you guys have seen before. I've got this mangled ear. I've got all kinds of stuff going on with me. And for me, I'm like, that's just this part of the exchange for what I do. And so, for me, I do like it, and I like it for all those reasons. You know, the distinction that comes from it, this you know, something about like having these little disfigurements. I don't know what it is. I think it's an attachment to this warrior ideal or this warrior image that I have, and so I like it. And so I'm just sharing that with you. Again, whether or not when you get it, whether or not you decide to keep it, that's on you, and I make no bones about it. I don't care what anybody does. That's your choice, of course. But if you're asking me, that's the reason why I like mine. So hopefully that helps you with your question, and I'll talk to you next time.